The year 1960, Pacific Ocean. A ship stood perfectly still in the middle of the sea. From that ship, a small submarine began its slow descent into the water. In the beginning, everything was normal. Sunlight, colorful fish, and clear water. But after just a few minutes, the light completely vanished. The Lygia. Now there was only darkness all around. A darkness where it made no difference whether your eyes were open or closed. But the real danger was not the darkness. The real enemy was the water pressure. As the submarine went deeper, the pressure on it increased with every 10 meters. If even a tiny crack appeared in its steel body, the entire submarine would be crushed in an instant. But their journey was not over yet, because they had to reach the deepest place on Earth, the Mariana Trench, about 11 kilometers down, a depth where not a single ray of sunlight ever reaches, where the pressure is so immense that most machines simply fail. For a long time, scientists thought that life at such a depth was impossible. But when humans first reached there, they saw something that shocked the whole world. Life was present there. Now the biggest question was, how was it alive? In today's documentary, we will learn how the Mariana Trench was formed, why is it so deep, what mysterious creatures live here, and why do we still know so little about this dark world on Earth? But this story did not begin in 1960, but millions of years ago, when our Earth looked nothing like it does today. Millions of years ago, the Earth looked completely different. There were no 7 continents like today, but rather massive rocky plates shifting slowly across the Earth. We call them tectonic plates. We cannot see these plates, but even today, they continue to move a few centimeters every year, meaning even at this moment, the ground you are standing on is not perfectly still. Among these, the Pacific Plate was slowly moving toward another plate, the Philippine Sea Plate. First, both plates collided with each other. Then something happened that created the deepest trench on Earth, because the Pacific Plate was heavier than the other plate. So after the collision, it began to subduct beneath it, slowly, meters, hundreds of meters, then thousands of meters. This process continued not for a year or two, but for millions of years, and this collision gave birth to the Mariana Trench. It is a trench that is now nearly 11 kilometers deep. So deep that if Mount Everest were inside it, even its peak would not reach the ocean's surface. But the Mariana Trench is not just deep, it continues to deepen a few millimeters every year because the collision beneath the Earth is still ongoing. Meaning, this is not an old story, but a process that is still happening right now. But if this place was so dangerous, how did humans reach it for the first time? And why did that small submarine take the risk of going down 11 kilometers? This is where humanity's most dangerous sea voyage begins. In the year 1960, the whole world's eyes were on the Pacific Ocean. At that time, no one knew what was at the very bottom of the Mariana Trench. Some scientists believed that there would only be rocks there. Some said that no creature could survive under such pressure. But the answers to these questions could not be found by standing on the shore. Someone had to go 11 kilometers down. But there was only one problem: how to get to such a depth. Ordinary submarines could only go down a few hundred meters. After that, the water pressure would crush their steel hulls. So scientists built a submarine that had never been built before. Its name was Trieste. Looking from the outside, it didn't look like a warship, but the small, thick steel capsule inside it was carrying the hopes of the entire world. Only 2 people were sitting in that capsule: Jacques Piccard and Don Walsh. If everything went well down there, they were going to be the first people in human history to reach such a depth. But if just one small mistake occurred anywhere, perhaps even their bodies would never be found. Then on the morning of January 23, 1960, the Trieste slowly began its descent into the ocean. The start was easy, but as the depth increased, their heartbeats grew faster with every minute, because their real test hadn't even begun yet. A few minutes later, the last ray of sunlight disappeared. Now there was only pitch black darkness outside the submarine. so deep that its lights could only reach a few meters ahead. But more dangerous than the darkness was the pressure. For every 10 meters they went down, the water pressure kept increasing. 1,000 meters, 3,000 meters, 5,000 meters. Now the submarine was under the pressure of thousands of tons of water. Suddenly, a loud thud sound was heard. Both of them went completely silent for a moment. They thought perhaps the submarine's window had shattered. If that had happened, everything would have been over the very next second. For a while, they checked every single system. Fortunately, the main capsule was safe, but they realized that the decision to return would be just as difficult as going down. Still, they decided to move forward because they were now closer than ever to history. But they didn't yet know who was waiting for them at the deepest point of the ocean. About 5 hours later, the Trieste finally reached the bottom of the Mariana Trench. There was a cloud of silt all around, because as the submarine landed, it stirred up the seafloor. For a few minutes, they couldn't see anything at all. Then the waters slowly began to clear, and that's when they noticed some movement outside. Something was moving. At such a depth, where scientists thought life was impossible, some creatures were actually present. This discovery was more than just a find. It raised a massive question. If life exists under such pressure, such cold and incomplete darkness, then how does it survive? Where does it get its food from? And do creatures live in the Mariana Trench that humans have never seen before? This is where the true story of the ocean's most mysterious world begins. The temperature at the bottom of the Mariana Trench stays at about 2 degrees Celsius. There is pitch darkness all around. Not a single ray of sunlight ever reaches here. And there are about 11 kilometers of water above a place where a human cannot survive for even 1 second without a machine. But right here, some creatures have been living for millions of years. The biggest question was, after all, how? Because almost all life on Earth depends on the sun in one way or another. Plants make food using sunlight. Small creatures eat them, and larger creatures eat the smaller ones, meaning the entire food chain starts with the sun. But the sun never reaches the Mariana Trench. So then where does the food chain here actually begin? Scientists asked this same question for many years. Then slowly they began to find answers. Thousands of tiny organisms die every day on the ocean's surface. Their bodies gradually fall thousands of meters downward. Scientists call this marine snow. Not ice, but life slowly falling deep into the ocean. This becomes the food for many creatures in the Mariana Trench. But not every creature relies solely on this. Some also hunt each other. This means that an entire world exists even at such depths. But if there is truly so much life there, what would the creatures living there look like? And are they truly stranger than we could ever imagine? When scientists began sending deep-sea cameras and ROVs down, the images that emerged shocked the entire world. Some fish didn't have eyes at all. Some had bodies that were completely transparent. Some could produce their own light, and others were so soft that if brought to the sea's surface, their bodies would begin to break down within minutes as they are adapted to that extreme pressure. The most surprising thing was that many creatures found here are not found anywhere else in the world of its own. But amidst all this, one discovery surprised scientists the most. They found a tiny creature that no one initially believed because no one expected to find it at such a depth, and this discovery deepened the greatest mystery of the Mariana Trench. The year was 2014, and another deep-sea expedition was sent toward the Mariana Trench. This time humans weren't going down, but a remote camera was descending thousands of meters deep. Scientists hoped they might see some small creatures, but the camera recorded something else entirely. A pale white creature slowly drifted past the camera in the darkness. At first, no one could understand what it actually was. The video was watched over and over again. Then scientists reached the conclusion that it was a snailfish, a fish that was previously believed to be unable to survive at such depths. But the most surprising thing wasn't its presence there. The surprising thing was its body. Its body didn't have hard bones like those found in other fish. Its skin was extremely soft, and that was its greatest strength. Where most creatures would be crushed under such pressure, the snailfish's soft body adapted to it. When scientists studied its body, they found that a specific type of chemical was present in large quantities. This chemical prevented the proteins in its body from breaking down. In other words, at a pressure where even man-made machines begin to fail, this little fish was swimming comfortably. But if this is true, another question arises. Is the snailfish the deepest creature of the Mariana Trench? Or is there still a hidden world even further down where human eyes have yet to reach? When humans first reached the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the world thought we would finally get answers to most of the mysteries of this place. But the reality turned out to be the complete opposite. Because reaching the Mariana Trench wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was understanding it. Imagine, the deepest place on Earth is about 11 kilometers down, but a submarine can only stay there for a few hours. After that, it has to return. This means scientists only have a few hours to understand such a vast world. That is why a huge part of the Mariana Trench has never even been seen. No camera has reached many areas to this day. High-resolution mapping of many regions is still incomplete. And perhaps there are creatures there that humans have never even seen before. That is why every new expedition brings a new discovery. Sometimes a new creature, and sometimes something no one had even imagined. But a few years ago, scientists found something that made them worried instead of happy. Because they believed that only nature could reach this deepest part of Earth. But humans had reached there too. And this time, not by sitting in a submarine, but in the form of our trash. A few years ago, scientists collected samples of soil, water, and organisms living at the deepest part of the Mariana Trench. But when those samples were tested in the lab, everyone was shocked by the report. Because tiny particles of plastic were found in them, meaning in the deepest place on Earth, which is extremely difficult even for humans to reach, the things we left behind had already arrived. This discovery was not just about the Mariana Trench. It taught the whole world a lesson. If human impact can reach 11 kilometers down, then perhaps no place on Earth remains completely untouched anymore. But despite all this, the Mariana Trench is still an unsolved puzzle for us. To this day, very few humans have been able to reach its bottom. Its vast parts are still not fully explored. Every new expedition returns with a new question. Sometimes a new creature, sometimes a new geological discovery, and sometimes evidence that forces scientists to change their old thinking. Perhaps that is the most interesting thing about the Mariana Trench. The more we know about it, the more we realize how little we currently know. Once humans thought that life could not exist in the deepest part of the ocean. But right there, a whole new world was found. Then it felt like perhaps we finally understood it. But even today, every new discovery creates a new mystery. Perhaps in the next few years, a new expedition will bring back discoveries from the depths of the Mariana Trench that change our science books once again. Because if there is still a place on Earth that reminds us that our world is still full of mysteries, it is the Mariana Trench. The deepest place on Earth, and perhaps the least understood world.